Hi, this is Kylie Q. Welcome to my studio. The April theme in the Mixed Media Emporium Facebook group that I co-host with Nina Ribena is Boho, and last week I put together this little painted journal. Now, somebody asked me if you could use watercolours. Yes, absolutely. No problem using those at all. Just try it out and see how you get on. And what I'm actually going to show you now is I did actually start boho journals previously. So I'm just going to show you these. I didn't get them finished, but what I am going to do is I'm going to link the playlist for this because this just might give you a few more ideas as to boho. And I think in the first video where I talk about making a boho journal, I actually say a little bit about what boho is and some of the terms and issues around boho, but also what it's come to mean these days. And for me, it's very much a celebration of cultures and different periods in time. Many of the romantic poets and artists were considered to be kind of bohemian at that time because they lived life a little bit differently to what was deemed to be the kind of norm at the time. And I think that with boho, it can be virtually anything you want it to be. But what I wanted to do today was just to go through a few things in my stash that are perhaps not obviously boho, but explain why. So a moment ago I had some kind of raffia type tape. To me the colour signified boho. Here the flower, this is a kind of paisley pattern, but you can also use circles. And that stamp in the right hand corner is one that I use a lot when I'm trying to convey something that's boho or slightly new age. Now I do have some fabrics, like Nina, I got some from Love Me Blue and I'll link them below. And again, there's something about the jewel-like colours in there that talk boho to me. This piece of fabric I picked up in a local town, and I wouldn't have looked at it as being boho at the time, but it is. But here's some plain fabric as well, and I'm going to show you in a little while what I'm going to do with that. But here's some brightly coloured strings that came off of gift bags, and also some ribbons that, I don't know, different things were wrapped in that I've always kept. All those colours signify boho. I went through my paper stash, had a look to see what I've got. I don't know where this pack came from, but I was looking at this just to see colours. Boho to me. So, boho for me is very much, as I say, a celebration and a fusion of different cultures and different points in time. So I often think kind of 60s, 70s vibe in terms of boho, that kind of flower power. This was a piece of yarn that I got a while ago and I've not used much of it, but again, that would to me signify boho. But it's very much what you want to make it to be. In a sense, in artistic terms, it's about breaking the rules. Now, I just happened to get in this little leaflet that was in a magazine the other day, and there were some images in this that just screamed boho to me. So I could imagine cutting little bits out of that and using it in the journal. Just the fabrics there, just some lovely patterns, very boho. That whole image, boho meets country in a sense. So that tribal look as well, that's often taken to be boho now. So all I would say is don't feel limited by feeling that you don't understand what boho is. Just make it your own. So as I say, jewel-like colours, but it can also be very plain and simple colours, broadly anglais, floaty dresses, that type of thing. But today I'm going to do a bit of boho grunge, and I don't even know if that's a term, but that's what I'm calling it. But what I'm going to start by doing is taking my stamp and taking those little bits of tags that I had left over from making my papers last week, and I'm just going to stamp across both. Just get most of the ink off the stamp, and I'm pressing quite firmly there to get it. This is very textured paper, as I said last week, and it gives an interesting image Really nice. And I'm just going to show you using some watercolours how that will turn out. Now I'm setting the ink here, although it will dry quite quickly. I just wanted to make certain because I'm going to be applying quite a lot of water. Now these are watercolours. These ones have got a shimmer in them. They were not particularly expensive brand at the time that I got them. I've had them quite a while now, but they serve a purpose. You know, I like them because they've got that kind of shimmer. And all I'm going to do is to go over these pieces and lay down a bit of colour. Now the other thing I'll do is I am going to link a playlist for all the videos of this particular boho series. So if you've not seen the first one, it will be linked above, below and at the end, so you can go back. And I'm just going to have a bit of fun with the colours. As I say, there's no rules, so just follow your own creativity when it comes to boho here. And as I say, I just wanted to show that really whatever you've got, you can make it work for you. And I'm just looking at the colours and thinking, will I go bright red? Will I not go bright red? And then said, yeah, I'll go for it. The one on the right, I'm just doing that a little bit paler. And then just introducing a bit more. And I know many of you in the Mixed Media Emporium have already been sharing your work, and there's some wonderful things there. A number of you have said, I don't know if this is boho, but let me tell you, it is. So there we go. Just looking at them, you could thicken these up if you wanted, but all I'm going to do now is another couple, and I'm going to do this slightly differently. I'm going to apply the watercolour directly down, and what I want to do here is to show you how you can get a faint pattern if you have a stencil. It's not an obvious pattern, but it just adds a little something. So again, just mixing those colours. I think this time I went on the opposite side of the paper just to try it. This is a watercolour paper, it's a cold pressed, and it's a very textured paper, this one, but the reverse side of it is smoother. It's still quite textured compared to a hot pressed watercolour paper, but this side is less textured than the others. Now I'm trying to make this quite wet this time. What I'm going to do is lay the stencil on top. Now this might work better with watercolours that don't have the pearlised effect, but I'm going to wet this again. What I'm going to try to do is to lift some of the colour out of it. It wasn't quite as obvious as I thought it might be, but there is quite a nice subtle effect to it. There wasn't a lot of colour came off there that I was surprised about, and I don't know if in this light you can actually see it terribly well. I'm drying it off now, just in the hope that the pattern will come out just a little bit clearer. But as I say, I'm going for Boho Grunge, so some of what I want, although I want to use some nice colours, I also want it to have a bit of a faded effect. You know, last week I spoke about this journal, wanting this journal to be like a well-worn pair of jeans, something that's well travelled, so something that's used a lot, that's seen a bit of history. I don't want it to look all nice, brand shiny new. This time I'm just going to try and use a stencil. Now I know that this is more difficult with watercolours. If you use them quite thick, you'll get a better pattern, but all I'm trying to do again is to show that use what you've got, and if it's watercolours and a stencil, then this is just one way to do it. It will highlight a little bit of the pattern, but not in the same way as using, for example, acrylic paint. And in this instance, it's simply to do with the paint and also the paper. Again, just trying to lift some excess there, and you can see that a little bit. Because it's got the pearlised effect, it does catch the light. And all in all, I am quite happy with that. And of course, I'll give them a good dry now. And here they are. They need flattened out a little bit, though I quite like them with that slightly rumpled effect. And what I'm going to do is put those to the side, and I'll do a little bit more with them later, albeit not a lot. So one of the other things I want to do now is to show you that if you have some plain pieces of fabric, and if you have something like Glimmer Mists or the dilution sprays, then you can colour your own fabric. So I'm just taking this plain material. I guess it's a kind of cotton linen type thing. It's quite thin and I use it quite a bit. I really like it. Now I'm just off actually wetting it just now. I'd been spraying it, but I decided to run it under the tap. And what I want to do here is to try a tie-dye effect, because you know I'm thinking 60s, 70s and tie-dye at that time, and I'm just thinking this might create quite a nice piece of fabric. So I had these little elastic bands and I'm just wrapping them round, and it took a little while to do that, but you'll see I've gathered the material and I'm going to go a little bit further down and put another one on. I love the tie-dye effect, and to me that's boho as far as I'm concerned. You could also say it's hippie, you know. Boho is definitely that kind of hippie type effect as well. So you could go for a clash, if you want to call it that, or a fusion of all different types of boho. So I'm putting on the gloves this time. I don't want to get my hands stained. Yeah, struggling with them a bit. There we go. They're slightly big for me, but there we go. So this is a Glimmer Mist, giving it a really good shake because the kind of sparkly stuff in it goes to the bottom. And if you don't know, you might already know this if you've got these kind of sprays, shake them from side to side and tap them on the bottom rather than shaking them up and down the way, because otherwise the little particles get stuck in the nozzle and that's why they sometimes don't spray. I've just got some cute computer paper here, just ordinary printer paper, that I'm just going to use as an underpaper because I want to catch all the ink, all that excess ink. It's the one thing that I don't like about inks, this type of ink anyway. I feel that there's a lot of waste, so always want to catch as much as possible. So this time I'm just going to spray it on top of that bit of fabric in the hope that the fabric will catch it. I was just wanting to make that little bit that I'm trying to get the tie-dyed effect on, that little bit darker. So just wetting that piece of fabric now, trying to get it to pick up all the ink that's lying on the paper there, and it's doing it pretty well. But I'm going to bring in this Dylusions purple one now, and this is quite a heavily pigmented ink. So I just did the one squirt there, and I'm going to try and gather the rest up on the other piece there, and I'm actually going to take some of it off because I just felt it was too bright for my liking. Just smoothing it out, and then I'm looking at the piece of paper and thinking, oh, I actually like the design that's leaving there. So all of this paper will be used as collage paper, and actually you'll see that I go on to use it to make little embellishments of a sort. I'm not finished with them, but I do go on to show you how I'm going to do them today. So just now taking this piece of fabric, again I dash off just to run it under the tap so that it's quite wet. It seems to take the ink much better if the fabric's wet. And here I am. This is a longer piece, so I'm going to do some different colours on this. I tried the elastic bands to see if that might act as a kind of mask, as a stencil, but it didn't really work, so I could have put a stencil down, that might have done something, I don't know. The fact the fabric was wet, the ink might have just sprayed in it anyway. So you could see that I could make something reasonably bright there. I want to kind of mix the colours a little bit because, as I said, I'm more going for a kind of grunge effect. And I bring in this one, and this certainly changes things up a bit. Again, tapping it along the bottom just to get the glitter stuff moving, and that's very dark, almost too dark. So I am going to bring in one of the lighter colours again and spray on top of that. When I say it's too dark, just too dark for what I wanted. For something else, it would be perfect. And again, just trying to pick up all that kind of excess. Now I kind of like grungy, so for me this was perfect. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but you know, if you've got colours, you can do them as you think best. Trying to squeeze some of the water out of that. And I've dried these ones now, just dried them with the heat tool. I've got my little tie-dyed one to come. I've dried those pages and I'm going to use them in a moment or two. But I'm going to do the reveal here. It wasn't dry at this stage, I needed to dry it with the heat tool. But I was keen to see how it turned out. And there we have it. So it would work. I didn't get it completely, you know, there wasn't enough ink on it. I think I would saturate it a bit more, but nevertheless I still did manage to get the kind of tie-dye effect. And just trying to dry it off there. It's a little puckered in the middle, it could be ironed, but again, grunge for me, it's leaving it that kind of crinkled way. So all in all, I was quite happy with that. So next, I'm just going to take these pieces and I'm going to do some stamping on them, because these will be used as, I guess, kind of little embellishments. That first ink pad was dry, nothing came off. You see me just double checking it here, but I will change it out for another at the moment. You know, sometimes you might be looking at things saying, oh, is that boho? Is it not boho? Don't worry, you can make it boho. So, got my other ink pad here. And, you know, there's a bit of me thinking about those nice images I saw in the magazine that I'm thinking I will bring out, not this week, but maybe next. And just thinking about some images that might go with those that I can cut out from here. So just trying to get different colours of butterflies. These are all paper artsy stamps, and I'm just going to stamp a few different things and see how they go. I don't use them this week, but they're there for future. Again, you could look at that and say, well, that's not boho, but I will make it into boho. And this one with the segments, I think I know where I'm going to go with that in a future week, but at the moment I'm just using up the excess paper and spray. And then what I'm going to do is, if you don't have stamps, then You know, for example, in a moment I'm going to use these, forget the type of material it is. It came in a package, you know, protective material, and I'm just going to stamp those. The faded stamp looks better, and I could imagine using those in collage on a page, and 2 different sizes. So again, use what you have. So I did a bit of doodling while I was having a cup of coffee, and I've not kept that in, but I'll do a bit more on that kind of thing next week. So I was looking at that bit of fabric and thinking that could make a nice pocket. Wasn't too sure what I'd do this time, looking at my little embellishments, and then I decided that what I would do is actually use some of the fabric as tops for the tags. Now I've put this on very quickly because all I'm doing is cutting little pieces, and I am simply going to staple these on. Sometimes it's the sort of thing I might sew on by hand, sometimes I might use a machine, but more often than not I will just staple. And again, to me, since this is Boho Grunge that I'm doing, then staples is absolutely fine. But of course the stapler ran out. So decide that these 2 I will actually punch a hole in the top, and I'm going to use the ribbons in a slightly different way. I'm just going to feed these through. And I think the kind of grungy colours work quite well with those watercolour backgrounds. Thought I could double that up, but the little bits were just too short, so I end up just using the sort of purple, the blue purple one. And I may decorate these in a bit more detail in a future video, or I may leave them as is. I do like that subtle pattern on them. Then of course I'm just going to go round them all just with the black stays on, and it just helps frame them a little bit. And you'll see I've cut the little bits of stamping out. Now I'm thinking, okay, I am going to just use these, a few of these little bits just as tabs. Now I've still got a lot to do in these pages. They were just background pages to start with, and next week, maybe the week after, don't know yet, I'll start to actually do a bit more work on them. But meantime, you know, it was just about adding in some tags. Loving that bit, and I want to keep it as is, I've decided. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp holes in it. So I'm just taking out one of my pages just to use that as a template. Wasn't sure how well it would actually cut through, but it was sufficient. And I will just fold that in. When I see that, I then decide that I've got a piece of denim here. This was actually sent to me along with a whole load of other fabric and a whole load of other things in a care package from a very dear friend, and she will know who she is, and it was a wonderful package, so thank you to her. And again, the denim to me just signifies boho, so I want to include that there, and I decide I'm just going to put this little bit of grungy material along the edge. Not sure yet where I'm going with that, but I will decide in time. So all I'm going to do now is just to paper clip some of those tags on, but that really is it for this week. So I hope I've managed to explain a little bit more about what boho means to me. Just please have a go. So as always, thanks for watching. Please check out Nina's video link below, and hope to see you again next time. Bye for now.